Good evening. I'm David Arredondo. I am co-chair of the Political Action Committee for CHIP, and I welcome you again to our 12th annual Candidates Roundtable. With me tonight are the candidates for the 9th Congressional District, and to my right is Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur. To my far left is Mr. Graham Vesey. To his right is Congressman Dennis Kucinich. And to my immediate left is Model UN Senior Tiffany McClelland. Tiffany has been a member of our roundtable for 4 years now, I believe, starting as a freshman. She is the most senior member of the Model UN at Lorain High School, and she is the president of the Model UN. And she will be leaving us soon. Unfortunately, this is Tiffany's last roundtable with us because in the fall, she expects to be at possibly Ohio State, Bentley College, and one other school that you said you were, Northeastern, possibly. So we wish you a lot of luck for your future. So we will now begin with the candidates' 2-minute opening statements, beginning with Mr. Vesey, followed by Mr. Kucinich, and then Ms. Kaptur.
Thank you so much. My name is Graham Vesey, and I'm running for Congress because it's broken. It's got just a 9% approval rating, the worst ever. Congress is broken because people have lost faith in Congress. It's got a $15 trillion debt, which is going to be $26 trillion in 10 years unless we do something about it. I'm running against two people who have been politicians for a combined 70 years. And what I'm offering is a fresh face with fresh ideas. We have to look at this $15 trillion debt because it compromises the investments that we want to make in economic recovery, in education, in the environment, and in energy production. This $15 trillion debt mortgages our country's future and my generation's future unless we do something about it. So that's why I'm standing up and I'm speaking out. I'm asking if I can earn your vote over the next 13 days because we need a fresh approach. For too long, Congress has been more about scoring political points than finding policy solutions. You look at No Child Left Behind. In 2007, it should have been addressed, yet for 5 years, we've seen just inaction from Congress. If you look at things that bind this new 9th District together, like the Great Lakes Water Compact, the only two people who voted against it were Congresswoman Kaptur and Congressman Kucinich. They said it didn't go far enough. They let perfect get in the way of good. Well, that's very emblematic of their governing style, and I'm running to make sure that the interests of the new 9th District, Ohio's North Coast, are represented in Congress. I'm Graham Vesey. I'm looking to earn your support.
Buenas noches, queridos amigos. Es un honor estar aquí con ustedes. Good evening, my friends. It's an honor to be here with you this evening. I've listened to Mr. Vesey on several platforms now, and what I hear is the voice, a voice crying from America's future. And I have to say that I'm moved by it, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was leading the way in challenging the war in Iraq and voting against each and every appropriation for that Iraq war, I was thinking about young people from your generation, not only the heroes who went out and fought the battle, but also those who are going to pay a financial price later on as that was added to the debt. I think about the concern that young people have about whether there's going to be jobs. And we have an obligation to young Americans and to their parents right now to make sure that there's jobs for all, that there's health care for all, education for all, and retirement security for all. Young people have every right to be concerned about the debt because you didn't make it. This generation was trapped into debt with the Bush tax cuts, with the wars, and with trade deals, which have really driven us into a hole. So my role in the Congress is to lead for peace, to move against these wars that have been total waste of money, to stand up, speak out, and to act on behalf of health care with a universal single-payer not-for-profit bill that is really the direction that we have to go in the future, to make sure education is made a top priority, and to start to move funds away from these war contractors and the war machine at the Pentagon and to our schools. We have to stop bombing bridges in other countries and start building bridges in our own. And so my approach in the United States Congress has one that has been people-oriented, has been fearless, and has gotten results. I appreciate the chance to be here, and I ask for your support on March the 6th. Thank you very much.
And now, 2-minute opening statement from Congresswoman Kaptur.
Yes, thank you so much to Chip for bringing us together this evening. It's a pleasure to join you. I'm the Jobs Democrat in this race. I also believe I'm the candidate on my side of the aisle that knows the district best. I've represented a majority of the land area of Lorain County for the past decade and have developed many deep friendships during this time. And we have real results to show for that service, whether it's improvements to the Port of Lorain, the new arc furnace at Republic, whether it's the recovery of the American automotive industry felt strongly here in this region, whether it is the funds we've been able to bring to Lorain County Community College to launch new businesses through the GLIDE program or the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. If we look around us at the removal that's going to start of the slag heaps on the Black River to prevent additional pollution into Lake Erie, and I am the only member sitting up here who's a member of the Great Lakes Caucus in the Congress and am a sponsor of the bill to stop the Asian carp from getting into Lake Erie. If we look at my support of commuter rail across the northern part of our state from Lorain to Cleveland, which others up here have opposed, I think that our record of real results is quite clear. I also have a plan for jobs, and that is to build on our success stories, to take our growth sectors that have strength in the western part of the state, solar, for example, and new energy forms. We've had over 6,500 new jobs created. Unlike my opponent up here on the panel, I do not support the closure of the largest corporation in Ottawa County, which has the highest unemployment rate in our state. I support the Keystone Pipeline project for jobs here in our region of the country and refining that crude and making the steel that goes into drilling, be it for gas or for oil. I've received, with gratitude, numerous endorsements of Latinos who know me: Baldemar Velasquez, Anita Lopez, Adam Martinez, and here in this county, the President of City Council of Lorain, Mr. Joel Arredondo, and Mary Santiago, the Chair of the Commission on Latino and Hispanic Affairs in the state of Ohio. I am very grateful for that and look forward to serving with you and learning more from you and helping to build the economy of this region forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening statements. The questions that will be asked will have 1-minute answers to them, and we will begin the questioning with Tiffany McClelland.
School districts around the country have been plagued recently with multiple problems regarding their budgets and community support. Do you believe the federal government should take more active role in aiding our school systems?
Thank you very much. I've supported federal assistance to local school districts, particularly through programs like Title I, early childhood learning, and for those citizens who are older, GED programs and technical programs where people can skill up and reskill when their jobs disappear. I have a very strong record of that, fully recognizing that 90% of the funds for education come from state and local sources. So the federal government supplements, especially in those districts where families are stressed, where incomes are not as high. I would continue that voting record and also to make sure that our children have enough to eat, they have good nutrition so their little brains can grow, and they can learn at the rate of those who have plenty in our society. I've always been a supporter of the 99%, and I also believe that the 1% have a responsibility to the rest of us. So I'm a strong supporter of education. Here in Lorain County, believe me, I feel a great affinity with those who are struggling at JVS, at Lorain County Community College, the City of Lorain Public Schools in Elyria, to help them educate the next generation. They are our future. Thank you.
As a member of the Education Committee of the United States Congress, one of the senior Democrats, and as the second-ranking Democrat on the Health, Employment, Labor, and Pension Subcommittee, I hear all of the debates that are going on in education, and I participated in them. But when all is said and done, the question that you ask is a question that really speaks to the urgent necessity of us changing the priorities in this country. Right now, war is one of the top priorities in America. We need to change that. If we made education a top priority, as much as we make war a top priority, we could have most of the children in this country have PhDs or be trained at a job that would enable them to have a good future. And so my approach is to say we have to change the federal priorities. Yes, we need more money locally. I mean, the state has long fought over a battle over school funding. There are many districts that are wealthier where the children are getting a better education simply because they have more resources. The federal government can help level that out, but the truth is we need massive injection of funds at a federal level, universal pre-kindergarten, more money for elementary education, and universal college. Thank you.
We hear about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but the war on poverty is being lost here at home. We're losing that fight in this new 9th district. If you look at the results that have been talked about by Congresswoman Kaptur and Congressman Kucinich, you have to look at the poverty rates in this district. Number one for the rise of poverty in America is in Ms. Kaptur's Toledo. Number two, in terms of poverty rate for big cities in America, in Mr. Kucinich's Cleveland. The way we address that and break the cycle of poverty is from Tiffany's question about education. The federal government has an obligation to address the education crisis that we're in America today. No Child Left Behind should have been looked at in 2007. It's 2012, and Congress has not acted on that. We have to look at the results of the two people I'm running against, two people who have been politicians for combined 70 years, and we need a fresh approach.
Thank you, Mr. Vesey. This question will be asked to you first, and then to Congressman Kucinich, and then Congresswoman Kaptur. From 2007 to 2011, as you just mentioned, Democrats had majorities in both the House and Senate. In 2007, Senate Bill 1348 and 1639 could not override a cloture vote, and in 2010, though the House passed the DREAM Act 216 to 198, the Senate failed a cloture vote 55 to 41. Given this history and the fact that Democrats do not control both houses of Congress, how can you expect any semblance of an Immigration Reform Act to pass? What would you do to further immigration reform?
Thanks for the question. That's why we need fresh voices and fresh faces in Congress, because it's filled with career politicians. When I go to Congress, I'm going to organize, just like I organized house by house, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood for Senator Obama's presidential campaign. I'm going to organize the 434 other members of Congress, but I know that I can't do that alone, because for too long we've heard people talking about reaching across the aisle. I'll stand in the aisle to get things done. I'm for the DREAM Act. Ms. Kaptur voted against the DREAM Act. We've got to make sure that people who realize that we live in a hyper-connected global community, that we can't turn our back on the nation of immigrants that we are. and being able to persuade the 434 other members to have a common sense approach to immigration reform will be one of my goals when I'm sent to the U.S. House of Representatives.
I didn't only vote for the DREAM Act, I voted for the DREAM Act, but in addition to that, I organized in the House of Representatives to get it passed. I worked closely with Congressman Luis Gutierrez because I saw it as a fundamental right of the children of immigrants not to be prejudiced, not to have to suffer and not be able to pursue a higher education because of laws that are in place that would restrict them because their parents aren't properly documented. It is horrendous that our children should be denied opportunities. And that these children of immigrants, they're our children too. We had a bill passed in a House once that denied health care to children of immigrants. I voted against it, and then finally they came back and came my way. I want to say this. Just because the Senate didn't pass it doesn't mean that we in the House can't keep knocking on the door of the Senate with a bill that is passed with larger and larger numbers. And frankly, my good friend from Toledo has never satisfactorily explained to this Latino community why in the world you voted against the DREAM Act. It's one of the things, in all the years that I've known you, I'm mystified as to why you voted against that DREAM Act. And maybe tonight we can clarify why you voted against it.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I think that several of us, perhaps on the panel, have benefited from our grandparents, our great-grandparents immigrating here to the United States, and we have all had an opportunity to benefit from living in this great country. I certainly am one of those that has. I did not vote for that particular act because I believe in comprehensive immigration reform. And I sat in many, many meetings, Congressman Kucinich, that you were not a part of, with James Clyburn, one of our most important leaders, along with Congressman Gutierrez, talking to them about how you form a coalition that can win. And that involves engaging organizations from every ethnic group and racial group that exists in this country, so that Asians, Arabs, Africans, East Europeans, as well as Latinos, join forces together in order to get a majority in the Congress of the United States, so that every family feels that they have a stake in this issue. I also didn't vote for the DREAM Act as constituted because it targeted certain people for enforcement by ICE. I don't believe in any group being extraordinarily targeted or having to give over DNA and families going through that kind of mapping of their extended families and turning that information in. I view that as un-American. Thank you very much.
Our next question will be asked by Tiffany McClelland.
Lack of compromise between the parties has been a major discussion among the people of America. Why do you believe there is such a lack of cooperation in order to reach agreements on topics such as health care and tax rates?
I just want to point out something out. I'm going to answer that question, but the DREAM Act passed in the House. It passed. Everyone needs to understand that. And my friend's explanation seems to say that, well, because there was a perception that it benefited Latinos the most, we simply couldn't let that happen. I mean, the fact is it benefited everyone. And so this is an issue in this campaign. It's not going to be settled here tonight. I'm going to answer your next question. The fact of the matter is that money plays a big role in decisions in Washington. That the reason why the insurance companies have been able to frustrate any kind of change in health care over the years is because they were putting tremendous amounts of money trying to block reform. The reason why we don't have a not-for-profit health care system is the influence of the insurance companies. It is almost a miracle that we were able to get reform within the context of a for-profit system, and I'm glad that I was able in some small way to help President Obama get there. But the influence of money is killing our system. I have a constitutional amendment to end private money in these elections so we can take our government back. Government in the public interest means public funding. If you have government in the private interest, it's going to happen because you have private funding of federal elections.
There is too much money in politics. I agree. And the problem is when you've got folks whose campaigns are supported by super PACs or funded predominantly from defense contracting industries, you're not going to have somebody give you a straight answer about any of these issues. The truth is, for too long, we've let perfect get in the way of good, and all we've gotten is the status quo. And people all along the North Coast, from Toledo to Cleveland, including Lorain, the status quo is not working for them, and neither is Congress. I'm going to go to Congress and make sure that we close the $8,000 a year donut hole in the Affordable Care Act. Corporations get a $2,000 penalty if they don't cover people. It's about $10,000 a year to cover somebody, and we know that corporations would choose to save their bottom line than to support somebody's health insurance. We've got to close that, or else we're going to add to the $15 trillion debt that we're mortgaging our country's future and my generation's future. So we can do better. We need to do better. And if you can vote on March 6th, it's a referendum on Congress. Vote for VZ for a fresh alternative.
Same question.
Thank you. I think that some of the divide in Congress is actually exacerbated by the condition of our economy. And people of goodwill on all sides of the aisle are looking for a way out. How to help the American people advance themselves economically and socially. Some of the people we serve with believe that the answer to the problem is to take those assets that belong to the American people and sell them. So, for example, here in Ohio, there are some people, including our governor, that want to cash out our turnpike. I don't agree with that, but the philosophy he comes from says you solve the problem by selling off something that belongs to the people. The same thing is happening with our post office, Postal Service, U.S. Postal Service, where they want to cash out the distribution centers and sell them off, like selling off the crown jewels of our country. Or take schools. We talked about education earlier. Some people believe that you should sell off the public schools and take our taxpayer money and create private schools, and the public doesn't realize it's actually taxpayer dollars going into those private schools, and those dollars are coming out of the public schools. So one of the reasons we can't reach agreement is because there's such a fundamental disagreement among who those national assets belong to and who should benefit from them.
Let me follow up on that question in terms of the divide between Congress. This is just a very quick, short answer. Congresswoman Kaptur, name me one Republican in Congress that you would consider a friend, someone that perhaps you can work with.
There's actually quite a long list, but I said at a prior event, the chairman of our Defense Committee, Mr. Bill Young. You won't meet a more honorable man, and it's an honor to serve with him. And I also admire him because he's very ill, and he manages to conduct his affairs with great aplomb, and I believe he has the respect of every member of Congress.
Congressman Kucinich, same question.
Congressman Steve LaTourette from Lake County has been someone who I've worked with to help save jobs at NASA, to help save a steel mill, to create opportunities to bring money into our area. We're trying right now, we're working together to try to put the money together so we can finish the second Interbelt Bridge in the city of Cleveland. We have a partnership here, and we've worked together from the time that I've been in Congress. You always have to be able to work with people on the other side of the aisle, because inevitably our government needs parties to work together in order to move forward.
I would reference Senator Alan Simpson, retired from Wyoming, because he's the co-chair of the Bipartisan Debt Commission. And the Bipartisan Debt Commission's addressing this fiscal crisis that we're in. Alan Simpson has worked with Erskine Bowles, who worked with President Bill Clinton and balanced the budget last go-around. And they're looking at this problem, and they realize that this $15 trillion debt that I don't hear either Congresswoman Kaptur talk about or Congressman Kucinich talk about is compromising everything that we hold true as Democrats. And so on March 6th, if you're one of the 77% of the electorate who are registered voters who can make a difference in this primary, or if you're a Democrat that wants a common sense, pragmatic approach, you can vote for VZ, which is none of the above, because it's going to be Kaptur, it's going to be Kucinich, and it will be Veazey. And we need a fresh approach in Congress because it's broken. And it's not going to be fixed by two people who've been politicians for a combined 70 years.
We're going to go into a very quick lightning round with 30-second answers or less. So let's begin with this question. How has your faith shaped your political philosophy? Do you believe that it reflects the values of the constituents of your district?
Yes, my faith has influenced me. It influences me every day today. Being Ash Wednesday, when I went to church and was reflecting on the next 13 days and realizing that it's quite a challenge, I realized that we live in challenging times and really feel that it's less about political ambition than civic mission, and there is a calling to do this. And so I'm a Christian. I ask that folks who are out there, who are watching this evening, look at the Christian values and the common sense approach and vote for Graham Veazey on March 6th.
We're taught that we must be ready to employ our faith, but faith without good works isn't always effective. I have followed the social gospel that's reflected in Matthew 25. Whatever you do for these, the least of the brethren, you do for the Lord. When I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was homeless, did you shelter me? When I was in prison, did you visit me? And it goes on to say that whatever you do for these, the least of the brethren, you do for the Lord. And we have to remember that we have a higher purpose in our lives. And it's for us to be able to spiritualize this material world and bring into the material world spiritual principles. And those spiritual principles are principles that can guide our government.
Same question, Congresswoman.
Yes, I think that the faith that I hold, I don't attempt to impose on anyone else, but I do believe and I respect people of other faiths, and I represent many of them, and people of no faith, those who are secular, because they keep the others honest. I also want to say that I agree with someone who recruited me, actually, to run for this position, a Roman Catholic Monsignor, who used to give homilies, and he would say that our faith demands more from us than having the church be the ambulance society that goes about picking up the broken pieces of humanity. That our faith demands justice of us as a society. I try to follow that dictum in my own work every day.
Very quickly now, beginning with Congressman Kucinich, should a commuter rail service funded by federal tax monies run between Cleveland and Sandusky, Toledo?
I certainly would support that, consistent with the cooperation of people in the communities that the trains would go through. It was many years ago that I brought together the people of the West Shore area in Cuyahoga County to be able to restrict freight train traffic. They had an agreement that resulted in $82 million in improvements being made. My view is that we must involve all people in the region to come together with an agreement to bring passenger rail through. Should it be a priority for the federal government? You bet it should. Remember, it was 100 years ago we had trains running through our cities, interurbans. We need to do that again. And we have to come up with the money, and we can find the money in our budget because we find the money for war. We can find the money for trains.
30 seconds, Mr. Veazey.
The answer is yes. I think anybody who's watching this and who's walked the Black River Landing knows that the two folks who are on stage with me were asleep at the wheel because we should have commuter rail from Lorain to Cleveland, all along the North Coast to Toledo, because in the early 90s, when the first test ride was done, it was with a packed train. What's happened? Well, the status quo is what's happened, and I guarantee that if you remain with the status quo, you're not going to see the results that we need and that we deserve.
There's only one person up here who serves on transportation appropriations at the federal level, and there's only one person who's brought funds to the northern part of Ohio to support the modernization of rail, from the largest passenger terminal of Amtrak at Toledo to grade separation of trestles in western Sandusky, to helping Congresswoman Betty Sutton get the $350,000 to do the rail study here at Lorain, to envision how we could work to have this West Shore corridor. There was another individual who opposed us every step of the way. I would ask for your support as the only individual running for this position who has consistently supported modern rail and commuter rail from Lorain toward the east and the west. Thank you very much.
That concludes our question segment of the roundtable, and now the candidates will give their 1-minute concluding statement, beginning with Congresswoman Kaptur.
Thank you very much, Chip, for the session this evening. I would ask for your consideration in the days ahead to vote on March 6th or earlier in each of the counties that are in the 9th District. I would ask for you to look at the record of who's been able to produce real results here in the North with modernization of the ports that she has represented, from Lorain to the west all the way to Toledo, dredging in all of Lake Erie's ports, modernization of marinas and boat docks on Lake Erie, supports the legislation to stop the Asian carp coming into the Great Lakes, has worked very hard with the Automotive and Automotive Caucus to get fair trade for America and revitalization of our automotive and steel industries, and has a very strong record of supporting manufacturing. But not just that, to work with stakeholders here in Lorain to help build forward the arts, the food sector, sensor industry, advanced energy, and to take the strength of our lake and develop nature tourism to the same extent as they have in Amish country in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and bring those millions and millions of dollars here to Ohio's North Coast. Thank you so very much for your attention this evening.
I helped save a steel mill which had a $2 billion annual impact on the economy of this area. Now, the transportation improvements that my friend was able to get, I was able to get $82 million in improvements without being on a committee, because I collaborated and put together a broad coalition that enabled train traffic to be diverted out of heavily populated areas, and I'm talking about freight train traffic. Now, I have to say to my friend from Toledo, your continued characterization of me blocking some kind of a train deal out here is absolutely false. And I wish that you would stop saying that, because if you would check with the law director of Bay Village, he would tell you that there was an attempt made to involve Lorain officials, and I didn't represent Lorain at the time, to involve Lorain officials in the broad agreement with the railroads. And if they didn't want to participate, because I didn't represent Lorain at the time, you know, that wasn't anything I could do. I represented my constituency. Now, if I represent Lorain, I am the one person, because I put together that deal before, who can deliver a passenger train that would go from one end of the district to the other, because I know how to do it. I know how to bring people together. I've shown results, and that's the approach that I take. I lead, I act, and I deliver. Thank you.
So you just heard from somebody who's been elected for 40 years, and somebody who's been elected for 30 years. And they talk about the results. And I'll remind you about that 1-2 poverty punch, and the fact that we've got to get somebody who doesn't just throw more money at the problem, but looks to really break the cycle of poverty, shed this region's Rust Belt image, and create the digital belt, or the vacation belt, because it's not just millions of dollars that we should leverage with our greatest natural resource, because Lake Erie is a $10 billion a year economic engine that we need to leverage, and we need to help put people back to work again. I'm running for Congress because just because it's a David versus 2 Goliaths, they might be strong, but I'll be more nimble. And I might be outspent, but I'm going to out-hustle. So the mornings that I've been at shift change at 5:30, be it at the Toledo Jeep plant or the Ford plant in Avon Lake, I'm looking to earn votes from those auto workers. I'm looking to earn votes from everybody out there. So visit grahamforcongress.org to find out more information. And I respectfully ask for your vote.
I want to thank the candidates, Congresswoman Kaptur, Congressman Kucinich, Mr. Graham Vesey, for being here this evening and doing a splendid job on this roundtable. Thank you. Good luck.